sip and read. Tempting the Enemy. Romance novel by Maria Barnett. Prologue.
Ethan, the night was colder than usual. I woke up with a start and blinked into the darkness. The heavy silence was oppressive, as if the house held its breath. I sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, my heart beating faster for reasons I couldn't quite place. Something was wrong. I could sense it. I slid from beneath the covers, hitting my bare feet on the icy floor. The house was eerily quiet. Too quiet for a home usually filled with the comforting hum of life, even in the dead of night. My parents were always late sleepers, and at this hour, I should have heard the distant murmur of their voices or the faint clinking of dishes in the kitchen as my mother prepared her morning tea. But tonight there was nothing. I crept toward the door and hesitated. A strange instinct told me to stay where I was or retreat under the covers and wait for the world to right itself. But I was too young to understand the power of intuition. I was too curious to heed the warning bells ringing in my head. Slowly, I opened the doorknob. The hallway stretched out before me like a tunnel into the unknown. The shadows seemed darker than usual, more menacing. I told myself it was just my imagination, the remnants of a bad dream clinging to my mind. I was wrong. As I padded down the hallway, muffled voices began reaching my ears. The muffled sounds grew louder with each step. I paused outside my father's study. The door was slightly ajar. A ray of light spilled out into the corridor. I peeked through the crack, my breath coming out in gasps at the sight before me. My father knelt in the center of the room, his hands clenched beside him as he faced 7 men. The men were strangers, with their faces twisted with anger and greed. My father was a man I had always thought of as invincible. Yet here he was at gunpoint. The leader of the group, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar running down the side of his face, held a gun steady, its barrel pointed directly at my father's chest. "There's no need for this. We can talk, we can." My father tried to bargain with him. "Shut up," the scarred man snarled, cutting him off. "This isn't a negotiation." I watched, frozen in place as my father's eyes darted to the door. To me. His expression was one of sheer terror. Somehow I could tell the fear wasn't for himself, but for me. I could see it in how his eyes widened, in the subtle shake of his head, silently telling me to run as he quickly looked away. Before I could move, I felt a hand on my shoulder, pulling me back. I turned, startled, to see my mother. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic. "Ethan, you need to go back to your room," she whispered urgently, her voice trembling. "Now." "But Mom?" "Go." She shoved me back down the hallway. I stumbled, nearly falling. But she caught me, her grip like iron. She pushed me into my room, slamming the door shut. "Stay here," she ordered. "No matter what you hear, do not come out." She fumbled with the lock. She must have been shaken by the event that it took her several tries to secure it. I staggered into the room, stunned as she threw the key across the room. "Mom, what's going on?" I knew deep down that something terrible was about to happen, but I couldn't comprehend its magnitude. My mother didn't answer, but I knew she could hear me. For a moment, I told myself this was all a bad dream. I would wake up safe in bed, my parents' laughter echoing down the hall, but the illusion shattered when I heard the gunshot. The sound was deafening, echoing through the walls like thunder. I stiffened. Seconds later, another shot rang out. This time, it was so close to my ears. I heard my mother stagger at the door. Her body slid down with a loud thud. "Mom!" I screamed and dropped to my knees. Blood pooled into the room through the small opening under the door, soaking into the carpet. "Ethan," she choked out, her voice barely audible. You have to. Take the keys and run." "No, no, no," I babbled, pressing my hands to the door. I ran back into the room and grabbed the keys. "Hold on, Mom," I cried while fumbling with the keys. The door unlocked, and I gasped as my mom fell backward into the room. She was covered in her blood. "Run, Eth." She coughed out more blood. "No, don't say anything," I cried, pressing my small hand to the gaping hole in her chest to stop the bleeding. But it was too much. There was too much blood. "Run." Her voice was weaker now, her strength fading fast. "Run, Ethan. Don't let them." Her words trailed off, her eyes glazing over as life drained out of her. I shook her, pleading for her to stay with me. But she was gone. I was alone. My mind went blank, and my body moved on its own accord as I hazily scrambled to my feet. The sound of footsteps echoed outside the door, and the men's voices grew louder. "They're coming. They had killed my father. They had killed my mother. And now they were coming for me." Panic gave me a cold, paralyzing fear that threatened to swallow me whole. I looked around the room, figuring out what to do or where to go. But there was nowhere to hide, nowhere to escape. I had dragged my mom into the room and shut the door. There was nowhere to hide aside from the wardrobe. And it was too easy to spit. The doorknob rattled, the men on the other side pounding on the door, shouting for me to open it. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest. I had to get out. I had to escape. But how? How could I? And then I saw it the window. It was my only chance, my only way out. I ran to it, my hands fumbling with the latch as the men started to break down the door. The wood splintered and the door shook with each impact. I yanked the window open, and the cool night air hit me like a slap in the face. I didn't think so. I didn't hesitate. I just climbed out and left my fate to the wind. Somehow, I landed safely on the hard floor with my breath knocked out of me. I scrambled to my feet, my legs burning as I ran into the night as fast as possible. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could hear them behind me, shouting, chasing me, their footsteps pounding in my ears like a death knell. But I ran faster, the darkness swallowing me whole as I fled the unknown. My heart was racing, my lungs burning, but I kept running, pushing myself beyond exhaustion. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. All I knew was that I had to keep moving, that I had to survive. I reached the edge of the property, the dense forest looming ahead like a black wall. I plunged into it, the branches clawing at my skin, the underbrush snagging at my clothes. But I didn't slow down. I couldn't. I wouldn't. The men's voices faded behind me, the sound of their pursuit growing fainter as I pushed deeper into the woods. I didn't stop until I was sure I had lost them. I kept running until the only sound I could hear was the ragged gasping of my breath and the pounding of my heart. Only then did I collapse against a tree, my body trembling and my mind spinning. My parents were dead. My home was gone. Everything I had ever known, everything I had ever loved, was gone. And it was all because of those men, those monsters who had taken everything from me. I curled up on the cold, hard ground, tears streaming down my face as I finally allowed myself to grieve. The pain was unbearable, a deep, hollow ache that cut through me like a knife. But there was something else beneath the pain and the overwhelming sadness. Something darker that my 15-year-old mind easily labeled hatred. I hated those men. I hated them with a burning intensity that I had never felt before. They had destroyed my life and ripped my family apart. For that, I would never forgive them. I will never forget what they have done, and one day I would make them pay.
Sip and read. Tempting the Enemy. Get your copy. Follow the link.